I told him he wasn't even in my top 3 lovers. He packed his bags that night and filed for divorce the next morning. But what happened next will shock you. He recorded our entire conversation and played it at his family dinner. So there I was, standing in our bedroom watching my husband of 2 years stuff his clothes into a suitcase because I gave him some honest feedback about our sex life. My name's Jessica, I'm 29, I work in marketing, and apparently I'm not allowed to have opinions about my own intimate experiences. David looked at me like I'd just murdered his dog or something. He kept shaking his head and muttering under his breath while he grabbed shirts from his dresser. I couldn't believe he was being this dramatic over one simple comment. "You're seriously going to your dad's house because I told you the truth?" I asked him. He didn't even turn around, just kept packing like I wasn't there. "David, we're married. We should be able to talk about these things." He finally stopped and looked at me with these cold eyes I'd never seen before. "Talk about what, Jessica? About how I rank against your ex-boyfriends? About how I'm apparently not good enough for you?" I rolled my eyes. "That's not what I said. You're twisting my words like you always do when you can't handle honest communication." But he was already zipping up his bag. Within 20 minutes he was gone, and I was left standing there wondering what the hell just happened. All because he made some stupid joke about my body count at dinner and I gave him a reality check. The next morning, my phone rang at 7 a.m. It was some lawyer's office telling me divorce papers had been filed. I literally laughed out loud because I thought it was a prank call. Who files for divorce after one fight? Over honesty. That's when things got really crazy. 3 days later, David's sister called me screaming about how I was a monster, and how could I say those things to her brother? I had no idea what she was talking about until she mentioned the family dinner. Apparently, David had recorded our entire conversation that night. Not just the part where I mentioned the ranking thing, but everything. Our whole fight about his performance, my comparisons to Mark and Tyler, everything I'd said about his confidence issues. He played the whole thing for his parents and siblings at Sunday dinner. I was furious. "He violated my privacy," I told his sister. "That's illegal. You can't just record someone without their permission." She hung up on me. Then the text started. His mum, who had always been sweet to me, sent me this long message about how disappointed she was and how she never knew I was capable of such cruelty. His dad blocked me on Facebook. His brother's wife unfriended me on Instagram. I couldn't understand why everyone was making such a big deal about this. Yes, maybe I was a little blunt that night, but David started it with his joke about my past. All I did was give him some perspective about where he stood compared to my previous relationships. Let me back up and explain how we even got to that point, because none of this happened in a vacuum. David and I met 3 years ago at a work networking event. He was this shy software engineer who seemed really sweet and stable. Nothing like the guys I usually dated who were more confident and experienced. I thought it would be nice to be with someone who really appreciated me. In the beginning, everything was great. He was so grateful for everything, so happy to be with me. He'd tell me constantly how lucky he felt and how he couldn't believe someone like me would choose him. It was refreshing after dating guys who took me for granted. But over time, I started noticing things that bothered me. In our intimate life, he was very traditional, basic. Nothing like Mark, who was more confident and experienced, or Tyler, who was incredibly passionate and adventurous. David seemed hesitant to even try new approaches. I tried to be helpful. I'd suggest different ways to improve our connection or techniques I'd found meaningful with other partners. I thought I was being a good girlfriend by sharing my experience and helping him grow. But he always got weird about it. "Why do you keep comparing me to other guys?" he'd ask. "Can't we just figure out our own thing?" I'd explain that I wasn't comparing, I was educating. "I'm just trying to help you understand what works for me. If you want me to be satisfied, you need to listen to my feedback." He'd get quiet and sulky after those conversations. I started to think maybe he was just too insecure for an experienced woman like me. The problems got worse when we moved in together. David made decent money as a software engineer, but it wasn't Mark-level money. Mark had been in sales and could afford nice restaurants and weekend trips without thinking about it. with David, everything had to be budgeted and planned. I tried to be understanding, but sometimes I'd get frustrated. Mark never made me split the check at nice restaurants. I mentioned once when David suggested we go Dutch on a fancy anniversary dinner. I'm not Mark, he said quietly. I know that. I'm just saying it would be nice if you made more effort to treat me the way I'm used to being treated. We had more and more of these conversations. I wasn't trying to be mean. I was just being honest about my needs and expectations. If he wanted to keep me happy, he needed to step up his game. Our friends started noticing the tension. At parties, I'd sometimes make jokes about David's quirks or limitations. Nothing cruel, just light-hearted observations. Like when Sarah asked about our vacation plans, and I mentioned that David's idea of adventure was trying a new restaurant. Some of us have been with men who knew how to plan real romantic getaways, I said with a laugh, but David's still learning. He got upset about that later. You embarrassed me in front of our friends. I was just being honest. Everyone knows you're more of a homebody. There's nothing wrong with that. But he couldn't let it go. He said I was always putting him down and comparing him to other men. I explained that I was just trying to motivate him to be better, but he acted like I was attacking him. The breaking point came 6 months ago when we were at his company party. His coworker mentioned something about relationships, and I made a comment about how sexual compatibility was so important. Some people are just naturally gifted in that area, I said, glancing at David. Others need more practice and guidance. David didn't talk to me for 3 days after that. When he finally did, he said I'd humiliated him in front of his colleagues, and he couldn't understand why I would say something so personal in public. It wasn't personal, I told him. It was just an observation. If you're embarrassed about your performance, maybe you should work on improving instead of getting mad at me for being honest. That's when he started pulling away. Less affection, less intimacy, more time spent with his friends or working late. I knew he was punishing me for telling the truth, but I refused to apologize for my honesty. Which brings us to that night 2 weeks ago. We were having dinner at home, and somehow the conversation turned to past relationships. David made some joke about how I'd probably been with half the city before I met him. Very funny, I said, but actually my number isn't that high. Quality over quantity. How many guys are we talking about? He asked, still smiling like it was all playful. Does it matter? I'm with you now. Come on, I'm just curious. 5, 10? I could have lied, but I've always believed in honesty in relationships. 17. His smile faded. 17? It's not a big deal, David. I'm 29 years old. Did you expect me to be a virgin? He got quiet for a minute, then said, I guess I just didn't realize it was that many. That's when I made the comment that apparently destroyed our marriage. I was trying to reassure him, to put things in perspective. Look, if it makes you feel better, you're not even competing with all of them. You're probably in my top 5 somewhere. Top 5? Well, honestly, top 3 would be Mark, Tyler, and probably Jake from college. But you're definitely in the running for 4th or 5th place. The look on his face was like I'd slapped him. You're ranking me. I'm not ranking you. I'm just being realistic about our compatibility. Mark was incredibly skilled. Tyler was so passionate. Jake had this amazing confidence. You're more gentle, sweet. That's not a bad thing. David put down his fork and stared at me. You just told me I'm not even in your top 3. I'm trying to be honest with you. Isn't that what you want in a marriage? Honesty? Honest about what? About how unsatisfying our intimate life is. About how I don't measure up to your ex-boyfriends. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to hurt him. I was trying to help him understand where he could improve. If you want to be in my top 3, you need to put in more effort. Watch some videos, try some new techniques. I'm willing to teach you. But he just kept staring at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Teach me? Yes, I have experience with men who really knew what they were doing. I can show you what they did that worked. That's when he got up from the table and walked away. I followed him to the bedroom, and that's where the real fight started. That's where he recorded everything. He asked me how long I'd been thinking about other men during our intimate moments. I told him it wasn't about thinking about other men. It was about wanting better experiences. Every woman compares her partners, I explained. I'm just honest about it instead of lying and pretending. He asked if I'd ever been faithful to him emotionally. I said of course I had, but that didn't mean I couldn't acknowledge that other men had been better partners. You can't be jealous of the past, David, but you can learn from it. He wanted to know if I'd ever contacted any of my ex-boyfriends. I admitted that Mark and I still texted occasionally, just friendly stuff, but I mentioned that sometimes I wondered what my life would be like if I'd stayed with someone who could really satisfy me. So you think about being with other men? I think about being properly satisfied, yes. That's normal for women. He wanted to know if I'd told my friends about our problems in our relationship. I said I might have mentioned that he needed some guidance, but only because I was trying to get advice on how to help him improve. You discussed our intimate life with your friends. Women talk, David. It's not a big deal. Sarah gave me some great tips for working with inexperienced partners. That's when he called me cruel. Actually cruel. Like I was some kind of monster for trying to help our relationship and being honest about our problems. I'm not cruel, I told him. I'm honest. There's a difference. If you can't handle feedback, maybe you're too immature for marriage. He said I'd been emotionally hurting him for months. Can you believe that? Emotional harm for trying to help him be a better partner. You're being dramatic, I said. If you actually listened to my advice instead of getting defensive, we wouldn't have these problems. That's when he started packing. And that's when I realized he was recording everything on his phone. Are you serious right now? You're recording me. I want people to hear exactly how you talk to me. That's illegal, David. You can't record someone without consent. But he just kept packing and recording. I was so angry I could barely think straight. Fine, record me. Let people hear how I'm trying to save our marriage while you're giving up at the first sign of honest communication. 3 days later, his whole family had heard everything. Not just the ranking comment, but all of it. How I'd been trying to teach him, how I'd discussed our problems with friends, how I'd told him he needed to learn from more experienced men. His sister called me a narcissist. His mom said I'd broken her son's spirit. His dad said I was the most selfish person he'd ever encountered. I tried to explain that I'd been trying to help David become a better partner, but none of them wanted to hear it. They just focused on the parts that sounded bad out of context. The recording started spreading beyond his family. Somehow his friends got hold of it, then people from his work. I started getting looks at my own job when word got around about the divorce. It began with David's best friend Mike, who apparently thought he was doing some kind of public service by sharing the recording with their entire friend group. Within days, it was in a group chat with 20 people I'd known for years. People I'd had dinner with. People who'd been to our wedding. People who knew me as a person beyond one bad conversation. My phone started buzzing constantly with messages from mutual friends. Some were angry, some were just shocked, but most were just disappointed. Lisa, who I'd been close with since college, sent me this long text about how she never knew I could be so cruel to someone I supposedly loved. I tried calling her to explain that she was only hearing one side of the story, but she didn't answer. When I texted back explaining that David had violated my privacy by recording me without consent, she responded with, "Privacy doesn't excuse cruelty, Jess." Then it spread to David's workplace. Someone in his office must have shared it because suddenly I was getting friend requests on Facebook from random software engineers I'd never met, just so they could message me about what a terrible person I was. But the worst part was when it reached my own workplace. I first noticed something was off when conversations would stop when I walked into the break room. People who used to chat with me about weekend plans suddenly became very busy with their computers when I approached their desks. Then my coworker Amanda pulled me aside after a meeting. "Jess, I need to ask you something. Is it true what they're saying about you and your husband?" My stomach dropped. "What are they saying? That you ranked him compared to your ex-boyfriends? That you told him he wasn't good enough in your relationship?" I couldn't believe someone had shared the recording at my own office. "Who told you that?" "It's everywhere, Jess. Someone posted it in the company Slack channel yesterday. HR had to take it down, but everyone already heard it. The company Slack channel." My private marital conversation was being discussed by my colleagues like office gossip. People I had to work with every day had all heard the most intimate details of my marriage. That recording was made without my consent, I told Amanda. What David did was illegal, but Amanda just looked at me with this expression I couldn't read. Jess, the legality isn't really the issue here. It's what you said to him. The next week, my manager called me into his office. Jessica, we need to discuss your recent personal situation and how it's affecting the workplace. My personal life has nothing to do with my work performance. When your personal life becomes a topic of discussion among staff, it becomes a workplace issue. Several employees have expressed discomfort working with you. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Because of a private conversation that was recorded without my permission, take some time to think about whether you want to continue with this company. Walking back to my desk, I could feel everyone watching me. The quiet conversations, the sideways glances, the way people suddenly found urgent tasks when I approached. These were people I'd worked with for 3 years, and now they were treating me like some kind of pariah. My friend Rachel was the first person to really turn on me. Jess, I listened to that recording. You can't seriously think what you said was okay. He recorded me without permission, Rachel. That's the real violation here. You told your husband he wasn't good enough in bed and that you think about other men. You ranked him against your ex-boyfriends. How is that okay? I tried to explain that I was being honest about our sexual compatibility issues, but Rachel cut me off. That's not honesty, Jess. That's cruelty. Even my own friends were turning against me. Sarah, who had given me advice about working with inexperienced partners, suddenly acted like I was some kind of monster. I never told you to rank him against other men, she said when I confronted her. I told you to be patient and encouraging. Same thing. It's really not. One by one, my friends started distancing themselves. They'd seen how I talked about David before, but apparently hearing the actual recording made it real for them in a way that changed everything. My co-workers started treating me differently too. Someone had shared the recording in our office group chat, and suddenly, everyone knew the intimate details of my marriage problems. Maybe you should take some time off, my manager suggested. Let things blow over. I didn't do anything wrong. My husband violated my privacy by recording me, but nobody wanted to hear about privacy violations. They just heard a woman telling her husband he wasn't good enough and ranking him against other men. The divorce was finalized last week. David didn't ask for anything except to be left alone. He moved to a different city for a new job. His family blocked me on all social media. Our mutual friends chose sides, and none of them chose mine. I'm sitting in my apartment now, trying to understand how everything fell apart so quickly. All I did was try to be honest about our relationship problems. I tried to help David understand what I needed and how he could improve. I never meant to hurt him. I thought I was being a good wife by communicating openly about our issues instead of suffering in silence or cheating like some women do. But apparently, honesty isn't what people want in relationships. They want lies and fake reassurance. They want you to pretend everything is perfect even when it's not. The recording has been shared so many times that strangers recognize me now. Last week, someone at the grocery store actually came up to me and said I was a terrible person. A complete stranger who doesn't know anything about my relationship except what they heard in a secretly recorded conversation. My own mother called me last month after hearing about the divorce. What did you do, Jessica? When I explained what happened, she was quiet for a long time. Honey, you can't tell your husband he's not good enough in bed. You can't rank him against other men. I was trying to help him improve. That's not help, that's humiliation. Even my own mother thinks I'm wrong. The woman who raised me to be honest and direct thinks I crossed some line. I keep replaying that conversation in my head, trying to figure out what I should have done differently. Should I have lied when David asked about my past? Should I have pretended to be satisfied when I wasn't? Should I have suffered in silence while our sex life stayed mediocre? I don't understand why everyone thinks honesty is cruelty. I don't understand why wanting better for my marriage makes me a villain. David was never going to improve if I didn't give him honest feedback. He was never going to understand my needs if I didn't explain them clearly. I was trying to save our relationship by addressing our problems directly, but instead of appreciating my honesty, he recorded me and shared our private conversation with the world. He destroyed my reputation and turned everyone against me because he couldn't handle the truth about his performance. Now I'm alone. My friends won't talk to me. My family thinks I'm terrible. And strangers on the internet are calling me names. All because I refused to lie about my sexual satisfaction and tried to help my husband become a better lover. I still don't get why everyone's making such a big deal about honesty. If this story left you speechless, smash that like button and subscribe for more unbelievable relationship stories. Drop a comment below. Have you ever been in a situation where someone secretly recorded your private conversations? Or maybe you've dealt with someone who just couldn't handle honest communication in a relationship. I need to hear your takes on this because I'm still trying to understand how being honest makes someone the villain. Let me know your thoughts.